Hi, my name is Brian with Ace Appliance in Toledo, Ohio, and welcome back to another quality video from ApplianceVideo.com. Alright, we have a Hotpoint refrigerator with freezer on top, and the complaint is that the freezer is not cooling down properly. Some things are starting to thaw out or not frozen completely. Noticed also, so the first thing I checked is I opened up the refrigerator door and checked down at the duct in the back there, where the airflow from the freezer would come from, and I noticed we're not getting much airflow down there, and that the refrigerator is also is warm inside there. Things aren't the right temperature inside there. So that leads me to believe that our evaporator fan motor isn't running, and also you cannot hear the fan running either. Usually you'll be able to hear the fan running when the unit is on, when you open up the freezer door especially. For this repair, you will need electrical tape, a Phillips screwdriver, a 1/4 inch nut driver, a 5/16 nut driver, a flathead screwdriver, a pair of wire strippers, two pairs of pliers or channel lock pliers, and depending on the application, from the OEM model evaporator fan motor to the original or to the universal fan motor, the parts, the tools may vary. And this unit is running, the compressor is running, it's trying to cool down, but the fan is not running. So to access our fan, to take a look at it, see what's going on, we're going to remove our back panel here in the freezer. There's just 2 Phillips screws in the bottom to remove, to take it off. And then our panel will slide up, and we can lift it out. There's 2 holes here in the top of the back panel that the 2 tabs here of the back of this panel go into. So we just lift it up and out of those holes in the back there. And now we can see our fan here. It's not spinning, and I just kind of gave it a little push and it started going. So we know we have power going to the fan motor, and the fan motor is running now. Seems a little on the slow side, and I can stop it really easily with just a finger. And if we stop it again, you can kind of see it twitching. You can feel it vibrating. If you put your fingers on there, you can feel it kind of humming, and it's just not going. And if we try and get it to go here again, and it takes right off. So it's just a bad fan motor. We're going to need to replace the evaporator fan motor for this repair. Alright, to access the back panel, we first have to remove our bottom panel to be able to remove our back panel with the fan on it. So to do that, there's 2 Phillips screws here in the front. We'll go ahead and remove those. And now we can lift up on our bottom panel here. This one's kind of stuck down. Use a flathead screwdriver to help me pry it up. And remove that. Alright, and now we can remove our back panel. There's going to be 2 Phillips screws at the top here to remove. First, what we're going to want to do is remove this styrofoam air duct. That's going to be in the way. So we're just going to pull up on that. Try not to break it, and get it out of the way there. We'll get these 2 screws out of here. Now we should be able to grab the back panel. Before we do that, after those 2 screws are removed, we've got to remove these 2 1/4 inch screws that are attached to the fan mount. And that's going to be 1/4 inch. And now our back panel will come off. So now we have access to our evaporator fan motor. Let's see, to disconnect our fan motor, there's this wiring harness here. We're just going to push it on the tabs and disconnect it. Pull out on it. There's a little bit of ice stuck in here on this one, so I can't push the tab in, so I'm just going to remove that ice. Push it on the tabs to release it and remove it. And now to get our fan motor down, what we're going to do here is remove the 2 Phillips screws on each side going into the back liner. And now our fan motor will come down. There's a green ground wire that goes and attaches to the evaporator frame on the left side. You can remove it there. to free up the evaporator fan motor completely. Next thing we can do is we're going to remove our fan blade. The new replacement motor does not come with a new blade, so we're going to reuse our blade. And it's just kind of a spring clamp on there that holds the blade onto the shaft of the motor. So sometimes they're a little hard to get off, but you're just going to grab the fan motor at the base of it here, and very carefully you're going to pull it off the motor shaft. Sometimes they take a little bit of force to get off of there. You don't want to snap or break any of the fan blades. And now to get the motor out of the frame here, or out of the motor mount bracket, there's two 5/16 screws to remove from there. So we'll remove those. This one on the left also has our ground wire attached to it. Now we can separate the motor bracket. It's got a rubber grommet here in the front, and the motor will come off now, and the back sits into a rubber grommet on the back frame, or the back mount here. So we'll go ahead and install our new evaporator fan motor. Alright, the fan motor that we're going to be replacing the original with is a universal fan motor. So there's a couple different things that we're going to do to this universal motor to make it fit the way the old one did. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the wire harness from the old one, and we're going to wire nut it onto our two new wires on the new fan motor. You can do that here at the harness, so you have the harness attached to the new one to plug it back in here, or you can eliminate the harness altogether and wire nut the wires directly on to the other side of the harness here, which would eliminate the harness altogether. So in this case, I'm going to do it so we still keep the harness, so we can unplug and plug the fan in if need be at another point in time. So I'm just going to cut the wires off of the old fan here, or strip the wires back about 1/4 of an inch or so. And there's wire nuts provided in this kit. Now that we have some good wire nuts, we're going to wire nut these wires together. And I could have left myself some more slack when I cut the wires off of the old evaporator fan motor. To give myself some more wiring to work with, I would have cut the wires off closer to the evaporator fan motor for the harness there. Now we got those together, we'll wrap some electrical tape around those so that we don't get any moisture or ice buildup in those connections down the road. So some electrical tape here, wrap it around the open end of the wire nut. Alright, so this universal motor, what we need to do is make it go the same direction, spin the same direction as the original motor. And from the original motor still working, when we pushed it, we were able to find out which direction it was spinning. It was spinning in the counterclockwise direction if you're looking at the front of it here with the shaft sticking towards you. So this original motor is set up to have a clockwise rotation, so it's spinning in the opposite direction, so we have to reverse that. It's a universal motor, you can put it either way. So what we're going to do is there's two screws here that come through the bracket through the motor. There's nuts on this side and there's Phillips screws on the back side, so we're going to loosen those up to separate the motor from the bracket. Take the nuts off completely. You may have to have a pair of pliers to hold the nut on the back side of it if you can't do so with your fingers. And I'm going to leave the screw in here and just take the nut off the back side of it. Alright, so now with that done, what we can do is remove our bracket here. And when you remove the bracket, there's two little washers, and then they a lot of times will stick to the bracket here. So you want to make sure you don't lose those. You can put them back down on the shaft if you want. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our motor off, and we're just going to flip it over and set it back down in place. Alright, then we're just going to reattach our bracket. So by doing that, we just reversed the direction that the motor spins. Go ahead and tighten the nuts back down. And they also let you know the direction the motor spins on the new universal motor by this this metal, I don't know what you would call this metal electrical ring here. When it's on the right side, like it is now, from where we reversed it, on the right side it has a counterclockwise direction on the spin, and if it were on the left side, it would have a clockwise rotation. And a lot of times you can just match up the ring from the new one to the old one here, the metal, which side the metal ring here is on, from the new to the old. This one here it's enclosed in a plastic housing, so you're not able to see it on the original motor. So we weren't able to do that, but luckily we were able to. It was working. We saw what direction it was going in, and we just made the universal one go in the same direction. So we'll tighten these down. Alright, and the next thing is the size of the shaft here. We can see on the old one the length of the shaft is much shorter than our new one. So what we're going to do is kind of even these up. And there's two break points on the new universal motor where you can shorten the shaft at. And you can see if we match them up here where the top of where the shaft goes into the housing on both motors, line that part of them up, and you can see it's right on the break point here. The length of this motor matches up to the break point, the first break point from the end of the shaft here. So we're going to take two sets of pliers and carefully snap that bracket off at the break point. Take one pair of pliers and hold the shaft, the part of the shaft we want to keep, so that it only breaks off the part that we want gone. Take another set of pliers and just snap it off at the snap point. Alright. Alright, and now what we can do is I've already reconnected our wire harness to the motor here. You can see the wire nuts that we installed earlier. And we reconnected the harness here, just snapping it in place. And then I tucked it behind the evaporator to get it out of the way of the fan blades here. So you can zip tie it to the other wires, tape it to the other wires, or tuck it behind there. Any of the above will work. And we're going to be using our 1/4" screws to reattach the evaporator fan bracket to the back wall or the liner. Alright. And you also want to note when you do put the motor between the brackets again, just like the old one, all the weight of the motor needs to be pointed downwards, and the wires will also be pointed downwards out of the evaporator fan motor there. And our next step is to put our panels back in place. So the first panel we're going to put back in is our back panel. Set that in place. Alright. Dang it. Those were the right screws. Alright, so actually we can use that video, the first video of putting the evaporator fan bracket back into position with the Phillips screws. Because those were the right screws, I was wrong. So you can either use that footage or we'll start again here. Alright, so we're going to put the Phillips screws into the bracket to the back cabinet. It wasn't the 1/4" screws. It's going to be our Phillips screws. So we'll remount the bracket to our back wall. our whole evaporator fan motor assembly here. 2 Phillips screws, hold it in place. Alright, now our back panel can be lifted into place. Set it there, and it's the 2¼ inch screws that hold our back panel to our evaporator fan bracket. There and here. And spin the blade to make sure it's not rubbing against anything. And now we can reinstall the 2 Phillips screws through the upper back panel. And the next step is to put our styrofoam air duct back in place. We're just gonna put the bottom of this inserted through the left side here, like that, and our bottom panel can go back on. There's a tab on either side, here and here, that's going to go underneath the back panel there, so we're going to bend that underneath there. Like that, and then we're going to have our panel that goes into the 2 grooves at the top here, our air duct, and there's going to be the 2 screws that go through the bottom after we get it on. So there's our 2 tabs that we're putting into the holes here. And the 2 Phillips screws go back into the bottom. There's 2 more Phillips screws that hold the front of the bottom panel in place. And now what we can do is go ahead and turn the unit back on. Make sure our fan's running. I can hear the fan blowing now. We got airflow coming out here. You want to shut the freezer door and then check for airflow coming down into your refrigerator. If you have the direction of the fan backwards, you're not going to have air coming down to your refrigerator. So we do have air coming down here, which is good. Alright, so we did have airflow coming down to the refrigerator side, so that means our evaporator fan is doing its job and we put it in correctly. So that's going to complete our repair of replacing the evaporator fan motor on our Hotpoint refrigerator. Thank you for watching another quality video from ApplianceVideo.com.